feel like I should have music running in the background.
You're always good at that. You're always good at providing the music. Welcome to those of you who are just joining us. We're just going to give it about 2 or so more minutes to have folks have the opportunity to come in and join us. So we're so glad that you're here. We're going to begin in about 2 minutes. Welcome to those of you who are joining us. We are very glad that you're here. We're going to begin in about a minute or so just to give folks a chance to be able to come into the session.
Welcome back, Dr. Trotman. Good to see you again. You are muted, sir. You're muted. You're muted. There you
Anyway,
are.
it's nice to repeat this. It's so nice to see you as well.
Yes.
And this panel, I look forward to the discussion
Indeed.
that will take place. Certainly very timely.
Indeed it
So
is.
you continue to have prophetic insight into all of these things.
To God be the glory.
Always,
Amen.
always.
Hello, Dr. Shavonne. How are you doing? I haven't seen you since we were down at Westchester.
Yes, don't say that too loudly. I'm fine, thank you. So nice to see you as well.
Oh, man. All right, everyone. Well, officially welcome to the Frederick Douglass Institute Collaborative Research and Debate Days. My name is Dr. Shavonne Shorter, and I am at Bloomsburg, where I am the Special Assistant to the President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, an Associate Professor in the Department of Communication Studies, and a member of our collaborative board. I am so excited to be here with you today for this session that many folks, as you have heard earlier, have been looking forward to, given the climate of where we are today. So the title of our panel is The Reality and the Response to Over-Policing of Black Bodies. And we are just so grateful to have such fine panelists who are going to join us, who I'm going to ask if they would not mind introducing themselves in just a moment. But before we do that, I'd like to share a few housekeeping items with you. The first is that this session is being recorded, just so you know. It's also being live streamed right now on social media outlets, so do bear that in mind as we get into today's discussion. I also want to invite you to remember that we are going to be able to interact with each other on social media about the kind of things that we are learning about today. So please do feel free to take down the various handles that you see on the screen to engage in discussion with us. Now, because we want to be able to see the bright and beautiful faces of our presenters today, in just a moment, I am going to be taking this slide down. So I would encourage you, if you'd like to join us in the discussion, to go ahead and take a screenshot of this now, and then go ahead and join us on social media. And you know, you can share your thoughts about what you're hearing there. I also want to let you know that we will be having an opportunity to have an attendance voucher that I'm going to share with you at the end of the session. for those of you who are in need of that for your classes. So I'm going to stop sharing the slide now. That's the warning in case you want to go ahead and take this down to be able to follow our discussion on social media. So again, we can all see one another and to be able to share as we get ready to enter into this conversation, just how timely it is given where we are. You know, it seems as though every single day that we wake up and that we get ready to take on the responsibilities of being individuals who are involved in higher education, be that administrators, faculty, staff, or students. As we are trying to go about our everyday responsibilities, we turn on the news and we see that another Black or brown individual has been killed at the hands of police. And how do we then go into our day-to-day responsibilities with a clear mind and a clear conscience? How are we able to function when every day we see that our lives are being taken for granted? At the same time that we are chanting Black Lives Matter, there are so many things happening that send messages that are counter to that. The time for change is past due. And I'm so glad that we have researchers who are calling us to solutions to this ongoing problem. Because today we say no more. We're tired of sitting back in the shadows. We have to do something. Our brothers, our sisters, our folks are dying in the street, and we cannot let this happen. So as we're in this space where we are awaiting for the verdict to come out of the trial of Derek Chauvin, we want everybody to know that we are here for you, that Frederick Douglass, we value you, we care about you, and that's why we do what we do. That's why we have so many programs to be able to expand knowledge, to be able to bring together folks to come up with solutions to these truly important everyday problems that plague our world. And so as I look at the research that we are going to be getting into today, there is hope. Even in these dark moments, there is hope. Because we have the folks who are really the change makers here with us. And I feel that we are very blessed because we're getting the inside scoop into kind of where we are going to make a difference within our society. So before we begin, I'm just going to ask each presenter if they would not mind taking a brief moment or two to introduce themselves, telling us their names, their university affiliations, their roles on their campus, and then anything else that you would like to share with us, maybe about some of the things that you're involved in or the kind of classes that you teach, something like that. So first, I'm going to ask Hannah if she would not mind going ahead and going.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hello. I like to take this opportunity to thank Frederick Douglass Institute for allowing me to present this research. My name is Hannah Watson. I am a senior at IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania. I study sociology with a minor in psychology. I'm also involved in a lot of various organizations. For one, I'm very happy about, I'm the president for Diversity Peer Educators. We go around and teach our peers and also our other colleagues about social justice topics such as racism, classism, different various of topics. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
And we are very happy that you are here with us. So glad to hear about the applied work that you're doing with educators. So please keep that up. Thank you. Next, we'll go to Alexi.
Hi, I'm Alexi Cabrera. I'm from Indiana University of Pennsylvania. I'm a sophomore and I'm a nursing student. This experience of me being a facilitator with the Frederick Douglass Institute was such a great experience. And I really got to be more knowledgeable about the social justice system and hear everybody's experiences and stuff. And it really opened my eyes. It was such a good experience. And also it was really important to me as well because I'm also part of the Student Government Association of IUP and I'm the secretary. So it's nice to have these things in mind so that whenever there's issues about racism and stuff on campus, we're able to address that. And also, it gives more of a perspective. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And go SGA. I used to be an SGA when I was in college. And so I love the fact that we're seeing student government organizations become much more active in the fight for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So thank you for that important work that you're doing. And last but never least, we have Anissa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anissa Venner Johnston. I am a senior at Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania. There, I study journalism, and I also have minors in poli-sci and pre-law. I am currently the vice president of a recently new chapter at Edinburgh University. It is the National Association for Black Journalists. There, we work on, creating a equal playing field for journalists in the career field, as there's not many of us out there. I'm also a member of the school newspaper, The Spectator, where I work on various projects. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for having me. I look forward to hearing from everyone today.
Thank you. And NABJ is one of the foremost authorities when it comes to media concerns and issues. And so glad to hear that you are involved in that work and that you brought it to your campus. That is fantastic. Thank you. As you can see, we have some of the best and the brightest here today. So without further ado, we are going to get right into presentations. Now, each of our presenters are going to have about 15 or so minutes to take us through the work that they have done. Then we'll have about 5 or so minutes to have some question and answer with each of our presenters. And hopefully even towards the end, we'll have some time to be able to make some connections between the presentations that we are hearing. So we are going to begin with Hannah first, and her work comes to us on Breonna Taylor, Black women and police brutality. So please, Hannah, take it away.
Thank you. Yes, for my research, I did primarily focus on the Breonna Taylor case and connecting it with a lot of police brutality among African American women. This research definitely hit home for me because I am myself African American woman living in our society. So just to give a little bit background on the Breonna Taylor case, March 13th, Taylor was in her home with her boyfriend sleeping. Around midnight or so, the police officers were called to their apartment complex of St. Anthony's apartment complex, and was related to a drug-related case. So they mistakenly entered her home. Three police officers, my bad, excuse me, Miles Colgrove, Brent Hackinson, and Sergeant Jonathan McTangley. They used a ram and forced themselves into her apartment, where they were opening to a firearm. Breonna Taylor's boyfriend shot a firearm, and the police responded with 25 bullets to her apartment, which other bullets were also entering other apartments, which one of the apartments had a 5-year-old child inside. With that, Breonna Taylor unfortunately was hit with at least 8 bullets as she was 26 years old. Because of her case was so significantly very traumatic, a lot of the public were involved, and a lot of especially after George Floyd case as well. There were a lot of public outrage, a lot of public attention involving social media towards her death. Going back to the case, the verdict was that one of the police officers, Brent Hackinson, he was charged under endangerment charges. There were no charges related to her death. There was no charges related to the death of Breonna Taylor, which is kind of not. It's not as, what can I say? With a lot of cases involving African American women, a lot of the verdicts was not guilty, and I'll go over that more further down my presentation. So focusing back on public outrage and how the public respond to it, again, like George Floyd happened prior, and then it was Breonna Taylor. So a lot of the protesting was going on. A lot of public was protesting on social media. There was a lot of hashtags. One I believe we all know is Justice for Breonna Taylor. Going with the protesting and the hashtags and social media attention, it developed and formed a lot of social movements. And I believe one of you guys, a lot of people may know, is the social media is Say Her Name campaign. The Say Her Name campaign is a social movement that seeks awareness for Black females victims of police brutality. And because of the social outcome and the social outrage and the attention towards the Breonna Taylor case, what makes the Breonna Taylor so significantly aware is because it brought so many other histories of past Black African American females cases to attention. Again, I believe the George Floyd definitely gave attention towards the Breonna Taylor case, because before there were so many histories, so many cases involving African American women that wasn't brought to light. And because the Breonna Taylor case was so significant, it brought so much, and again, the public, it brought so much attention and it brought awareness to the Breonna Taylor case, and also the Black female victims as well. So getting into the Black female victims and history of it, we're all aware of Sandra Bland, who was 20 years old, who was found hung in a cell of Waller County, Texas, just 3 days prior to her getting arrested during a traffic stop. Kayla Moore, who died of being restrained by police officers responding to a 911 call. Atana John Jefferson, who was 28 years old, who was shot dead in her home by a police officer in Fort Worth, Texas, October 12, 2019. Now, again, these are very familiar with the Breonna Taylor case and other cases as well that has been brought to light. Most of these cases involve African-American women, and it shows their police brutality, the history of their police brutality. A lot of these cases were verdict of no charges and not guilty. There is so many research I found involving the history of African American women, and it's to me, it's mind-blowing how it's never brought to light. And again, it's traumatic experience for the Breonna Taylor case, but also I have to give thanks because it brought so much attention, and the public is also aware of what's going on to our African American women. Granted, there's so much attention towards the Black African American men, but there's nothing. Black African Americans are so below the spectrum that even police brutality, you don't see it, and this brought so much to light. There's research, and I'm going to attach a link to the research I found in the chat, but there's a research article posted by the Washington Post, it's September 20th, 2020, stating that over almost 250 African-American women were fatally shot by police since 2015. Now that's significant. So why is it that out of those 250, we don't really see it in society until the death of Breonna Taylor? And in addition, a lot of these cases, again, were found that the verdict was not guilty, and police officers were never charged for these deaths. So, and also in the research, you will see, and again, I'll put in the chat, that there's, they compare the fatal shot rates of Black women compared to other races. And a lot of, in the graphics, there is nothing compared to it. There's so many, again, over 250 since 2015 were found victims. So I'm going to be shifting the focus a little bit because we understand now the public attention and how it relates to Breonna Taylor and how it brought so much attention to our community, that it kind of forced government officials to create policies and to create different laws and to help, I guess, build up the society for this case. And so with that, government officials in Louisville, Kentucky, they brought forth a policy change of banning the no-knock, not banning, but yes, banning the no-lock warrant. So with a no-knock warrant, it is basically it's a search warrant where police officers have to knock before entering or announcing their presence at someone's home. So I don't know whoever watched Law and Order. I watched Law and Order, but it's to me, it's amazing how we see these, police officers knocking on someone's home, announcing their presence, and in real life, there's not enough laws or anything covering that. So I feel like that's to me, that's significant. So again, relating that to the Breonna Taylor case, the senator of Kentucky, which is Senator Rand Paul, he proposed the bill for the no-lock law, and Louisville police officers are required to knock upon entry and announce themselves as having a search warrant. To me, I feel like, why wasn't this law why wasn't this law present in our society before? And a lot of no law is already within a lot of majority of the United States, of the states, but some of these states are not, they don't have the law in their policies. And again, these states are I believe Oregon, Florida, Virginia, they don't have it. And I think Utah also don't have it, the no-knock law, but however, they have it for entry upon drug-related cases. That's it. So to me, even after the significance of the Breonna Taylor case, why isn't that the rest of these states are not allowing or not even considering having the no-knock warrant law? So for the police officers of Louisville, they since once the law has been passed and signed, I believe it is, they are required to knock an entry and announce that the presence. And also, if someone is absent underneath any absent circumstances, they have to wait a minimum of 15 seconds, and they need to have an operating body camera with them as well while they're going into any type of situation like that. Councilwoman Jessica Green, she said, and I quote, these are steps taken to reform public safety laws. My opinion, I definitely do agree that these will be steps taken towards reforming the public safety. I mentioned prior, a 5-year-old child almost got hurt because of what happened with the Breonna Taylor and her involving her death. So again, like I mentioned before, the states that are not really doesn't really have issue the no-knock law. Again, it's Oregon, Florida, and Utah. A lot of these cases, they don't really. A lot of these states, they don't really have it. They have the no-knock law present, but however, again, it's not the government officials in Congress, they didn't put it as a mandatory for other states as well. It's not like a mandatory law to have. It goes with the state. So in conclusion, Breonna Taylor's death, it connects so much with African-American women and how much we've been through in the history of it all, of police brutality, the way how society itself, they brought so much attention to it, and so much, again, the social movements of the Say Her Name campaign, the Justice for Breonna Taylor, even though the verdict wasn't what society wanted or what community wanted, it shows so much light to what's going on within our society. And again, yes, maybe not all states have the no-knock law warrant present, but it will definitely bring more other policies involving these cases and these situations going on in society, and hopefully brings light to what these cases mean to us and what's going on in our African American community. And again, with police reform being involved as well, and the public safety reform, and how it should definitely change to different circumstances and shift in our community. However, this research brought so much attention to me in involving policy and how it connects to policy, and how that one policy can change so much more in our community, and how it can really make a light to the African American community as well, and also different, not just African American community, but women in general, and how it should change, and how we need to step up again to make sure the government understands that this shouldn't happen. And it's so crazy how I realized that the government, they have a way of changing policies after something after something dramatically what happened, and but it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be after something dramatic that you see policy changing. It should be where we need, and as a community, we need to take a step forward and say, look at these policies, look at these laws, and again, connect it with a lot of these cases that are going on with our African American community, and say that, okay, we need to do something about it. Again, thank you so much. I wasn't sure if this was 15 minutes. I hope it was, but I am a little nervous. I'm sorry, I'm shaking, but thank you again. And I hope you guys learned something from this presentation.
Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking Hannah. Yay, Hannah. And, you know, because we're on Zoom, we got to throw some reactions up there. So let's throw some reactions up there. Let's show some love. We got to show some love and show some support. Hannah, you did a beautiful job. Beautiful, beautiful job. And so now we have time for questions. So is there anyone who would like to ask questions about this really important research about how the Breonna Taylor case really shed a light on the circumstances that Black women go through as well? A lot of times when we have seen instances of police brutality, we saw it against male or masculine identified members of our community, but this really shed a brighter light on that too. So anyone who would like to ask a question, you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question that way, or you can go ahead and ask your question by typing in the chat box as well. So please, the floor is now open for any discussion.
I did post a link for the statistics of the women, African-American women, and their rates in comparing to other women involved in police brutality.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Also, comments are also welcome as well in the chat, or also on the mic. So anyone who would like to make a comment or ask a question.
Hannah, I have a question for you. As you talked about, social media posts a lot about, you know, the importance of Black Lives Matter movement. We followed it a lot. I was just wondering, because often when people talk about brutality against Black women, it's usually centered around the medical field and the lack of medical attention Black women get. Did your research show any correlation or a relative comparison between those numbers? Do women get, I guess, I don't want to say more mistreated in the medical field than they do by police, but is there any data that you saw about that?
I didn't see any data relating with the health medical field. I saw a lot more data involving police brutality when it comes to being arrested or restrained by police officers. I won't be surprised if there were a significant numbers as related to the research that I've done with the police brutality. Like, again, African Americans have suffered so much over the years, and the rates and the numbers and statistic it's really high.
Thank you, Hannah. Now Dr. Watson has a question.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi.
Thank you so much for the presentation and the work that you're doing. I was really interested in the way that you framed your presentation, which was around sort of say her name movement and acknowledging that Black women's experiences with police sometimes don't get covered to the same extent that Black men who are victimized by police do. And so I guess I was wondering, in your research, how you were thinking about the lack of coverage that Black women's experiences with policing has. Is there any discussion? Did you sort of arrive at any understanding as to why Black women's experiences with police brutality are not covered as often, anything like that?
I don't, again, I feel like it's because we're so below the spectrum in our society. Like, we as African-American women, we are not looked at as much, and not just in you know, police brutality, but in other cases, in other various statements as well, like jobs, relationships. Like, it's just, we're just so below the spectrum. And I believe that because in society our stereotype is not as high as other, not stereotypes, I'm sorry, the way how we are looked at, it's not as, what's the word I'm looking for?
Maybe
shown.
something about it's not being as positive as
yes. Thank you so much. It's not as being as positive as other women in the society, other race women in our society. And to see that the numbers of over 250 females that were in like ball police brutality, that has, I didn't know that until I saw that research. And to see that, why I start questioning, why was that not being shown up? Why is it not being shown as much? And why does it take one movement, like Say Her Name campaign, to bring so much light into it? Or why did it have to be until someone died, like in the case of Breonna Taylor, to bring so much attention to it? Why did it have to be where something dramatically happened where, again, we're in the light, but it's also not in a positive light as well. It kind of started off in a bad light. So it's just, to me, it's just, I feel something has to change, something has to give. And again, this is why I connected so much also with policy. I feel like the policy will bring so much help to it, involving, yes, involving that. So I hope I answered your question. Okay, awesome.
Thank you. And now Shema will have our last question for Hannah.
First of all, great job on that presentation. I think it's very interesting, and I like to focus on Black womanhood because I feel like, just like as you were speaking, I was thinking of just the way that Black women kind of sometimes have to choose between their Blackness and their women and their womanhood, right? In the way that that works in terms of intersectionality and feminism, and just throughout American history, the way that Black women would have to choose between, like, look, their right as women in American society, or their rights as Black individuals within American society. And I feel like that's also really interesting. That's also a really interesting aspect to look at in comparison to your research, because I feel like that kind of feeds in some way, right? Because they're Black women, they're not just Black, and the way that that also feeds in. And I think the other thought I had was just the stereotypes, like you were saying, about Black women being perceived in a negative light, or even loud or caretakers as being able to withstand pain. I feel like there's that kind of connotation as well within American society or American Black women. So I feel like all of that kind of feeds in as well. And I would love to see some continuation of your research kind of looking at the aspect of womanhood and how that impacts media coverage as well for Black women being not as covered in these cases of police brutality. But great job on your research. I really enjoyed listening to it.
Thank you. Thank you. And to add on, it's just, I love how even after her Breonna Taylor's case and the finding, even with the movements, again, it brought so much connection and so much togetherness and unity within the African American community amongst our Black African American women, and how I believe Beyonce even wrote a letter, saying that justice for Breonna Taylor it needs to happen. And I just love how the way how it brought everyone together, especially within the African American community. It's so much needed. Our unity is so much needed, and not just African American women, but all women together. I love how it just brought so much unity to that. So thank you all.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to go to our next presenter, who is Alexi. And Alexi is going to talk to us about bringing together policing and facilitation. So Alexi, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I have a presentation slide. Do you want me to share my screen for that?
Yes, please.
Okay, give me 1 second. I think I need access for it.
Let's see if we can get you that access. See if you're able to do it now.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
Can you guys still see it? Okay. Well,
yes, we can. If you hit the present button, I think it'll bring it up nice and big on the side for us.
Okay, just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so this is my presentation. I'm Alexi Cabrera, and as I said, I'm from Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and I'm going to be talking about bringing together policing and facilitation because I was a facilitator for quite some time this year. So first I'm going to be talking about what exactly facilitation is and facilitative dialogue. So facilitation is the act of engaging participants in creating, discovering, and applying learning insights. So facilitation as a whole is definitely a skill because I had to be trained for this and to be a facilitator. So as a facilitator and facilitation, they kind of coexist in each other. And to be a facilitator, there are certain roles for that. For example, the first would be active listening. So as a facilitator, it's very crucial that you're actively listening to the participants in your dialogue and in your discussion. So it's important to know that you're engaged with the audience and that you're really like listening to what they're saying. So for example, using certain body language and also eye contact, it shows that you're interested. So that's very important when being a facilitator. Clarification is also very important because as a facilitator, you're often going to ask participants in the dialogue, like, you know, what they mean, like if you need more clarification on something, or if they have a certain view, you might want to have them clarify it more so that everybody else can understand and so that it's beneficial for everybody. Problem solving. So as a facilitator, and if you ever have a town hall or any type of discussion based thing, a lot of times it's on a problem solving basis. So for example, in my town hall, it was examining policing through the courts, community, and context. So it was obvious, you know, there's a problem with power in policing. So that was kind of the main issue that we were talking about. So it's more of a problem solving based discussion. And oftentimes you're going to have to stimulate dialogue as a facilitator because sometimes people don't want to talk, or they are too shy, or they're just having like a block in their head and they're not able to like really think about what they're trying to say. So as a facilitator, you would be stimulating dialogue, which is really important. And also redirection. Oftentimes in discussions, people will have different opinions about certain things, or they'll go off topic. So it's always important as a facilitator to redirect to the main message. And as a facilitator, the expected outcome usually is to create a space for an exchange of ideas, thoughts, and feelings. So you would really just promote a safe space to talk. Okay. So what is the importance of facilitating a discussion from a social justice perspective? So I'm going to be talking about my town hall experience and how I realized how important it was to have a facilitator and to facilitate a discussion. So in a discussion, for example, about social justice and these really hard issues and stuff, it's really important to make sure that there's structure so that everybody is able to say what they feel, and also to make it cohesive. And also it's very important to realize, you know, that there's diverse perspectives, and there's people that might not think there's anything wrong with our social justice system. There might be people that don't see a problem, but then there's people that have firsthand experiences and know that there's a problem, and then there's people that want to be more educated on it. So for having a town hall and for facilitating, it's really important because you're able to bring together everybody. And again, the role of facilitator, as I mentioned in the previous slide, all of these roles, they come together in order to create this really meaningful discussion. And also, as a facilitator and in my town hall experience, I was able to have panelists, and the use of panelists are very important. So if you don't know what a panelist is, it's somebody that, or individuals that are really knowledgeable about a specific subject. Like, so for example, I actually had a lawyer and a professor, Dr. Pelos, and also a retired police officer, Mr. Ronald Hampton. And they really help to educate all of us on what exactly I and my partner and my team wanted to talk about. So for example, the policing power and also the courts in the community and context. So they were really able to talk more about what is really going on and because of their experiences. So it's really important to use panelists in these discussions. And when you have panelists, it's very important to facilitate because you're going to be the one to like really get the conversation flowing. So yeah, and meaningful discussion is always the desired outcome. So I really realized for these types of issues such as social justice and police brutality, it's just so important to have this structure and to have like a facilitation going on. It's very important. So my experiences overall as a student facilitator. So I said previously, I'm part of the Frederick Douglass Institute, and I was with the Pen or Pencil, Let Me Read Your Rights collaborative. And I actually found this opportunity from Dr. Watson because I'm also part of another student organization, kind of scholarship, Promising Scholars. And I really wanted to do something that I would learn from. And she told me about this opportunity, and I just like was really interested in it. I really wanted to like talk about these issues. So it's just such an honor that I was able to, you know, go through this experience. I also went through virtual training since unfortunately we are not able to do it in person. But it was such a good experience, even though it was virtual. So my training lasted about 5 weeks overall, and it was really interesting because I realized like how much I really didn't know about facilitation and about like my public speaking skills and stuff, because I'm pretty introverted myself usually, so this really helped me to step out of my box and stuff like that. And we were able to research about policing and the justice system. So we had a process of like how we were going to really become knowledgeable about these issues. So we read a bunch of articles. We actually read this book, which I still read to this day. It's So You Want to Talk About Race. This book is such a good book. I highly recommend it. Can you guys see the book? I don't know if you guys can see it. Okay. So that was a great resource because it really, I'm not African American. I'm Hispanic, but I didn't really realize like what exactly Black people really go through. And this book really just like helped me to really know and to like understand more. And it was such a great book. And we just did a lot of research because if you're gonna do a facilitation or any type of dialogue, it's important to know like what you're gonna be talking about. Also, I was collaborating as a team. I had a partner, and it was such a great experience to collaborate with people because these types of things you definitely need a team for. With my town hall, I don't know how I could have done it by myself, which I didn't. I had a whole team, and it was really great team building experience. And what I would say like my takeaways from my town hall itself, I really didn't know much going into it. Like I didn't realize there was such a process of being a facilitator, and it's every process, like every step is so worth it because you really realize like, wow, like a lot goes into this, and a lot of these events, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but it was a great experience and it was very fulfilling. So yeah. And then just some resources and tips for a meaningful experience if you ever want to become a facilitator or just have a dialogue or discussion or have a town hall event. It's really important to amplify the participants and the panelists' voices because, as I said previously, a lot of times the participants might not be able to say what they want to say, or they might not be able to like say what they have to say in the way that they want to. So you as a facilitator will help them to amplify their voices and to really get their creative juices flowing. And the same thing with the panelists, making sure that they have their voices heard and what they want to discuss. Also, another thing is practice. It's very important. Practice makes perfect. For my training, I had to do like a first type of like facilitation type of thing where I was partnered with somebody and we were having a little mini facilitation, and I definitely like I ran out of time my first time. So I really realized like, wow, like I need to practice and stuff, and I'm still not perfect. I still want to get better at this, but it's definitely something, it's a skill that you grow over time. And also the importance of time itself in your facilitation, in your dialogue. So my town hall itself was about an hour and 15 minutes, I would say. And I was getting close to time, which I didn't expect, honestly. So it's very important to really um, monitor time and honor time in every aspect, making sure that everybody has their voices heard. And it's also important to imagine like opportunities to engage the audience, so like have an idea of like, okay, so maybe this audience, they're not very active. How am I going to get them to be active in the discussion? Like, how am I going to be able to do that? And kind of imagine like, okay, like different scenarios, like, okay, this might happen, so what am I going to do to engage everybody? And also to be vigilant with your attention. As I said, attention is really important because you have to make sure everybody's heard and make sure that, you know, everybody gets to say what they have to say. And with my town hall, we made sure to like monitor the chat to make sure everybody's ideas were said, or what they had to say, or their questions were heard. And also other things, we always made sure to address everybody's questions and concerns and or comments, and just make people feel heard. That's so important. And also the last thing I would say is finding panelists that match your goals. So for example, as I said, me and my partner, we chose to talk about the the power in policing. So how police have a lot more power than we do as regular people. Like why is that? So that's why we had a lawyer and somebody who was really had experience in the justice system, like a retired police officer. We had them talk about those things because they had the experience in it, and they were able to like really craft our ideas and make them like into what they were. So it's very important to find panelists with similar goals as you, and also aligning with your goals itself. So what I have below, I was trying to find a link to my actual facilitation, my town hall. I couldn't find it. I'm just not good with technology, so I'm sorry about that. But this is the website, and there's multiple different past town halls that you can look at for a resource and kind of see how it is. But yeah, it's a great experience. If you guys ever like have any questions about it, just I'll put my email in the chat just to reach out. But I recommend that you one day facilitate a town hall or just have some type of dialogue going. It's such a great experience. So thank you guys.
And thank you so much, Alexi. Let's give Alexi a round of applause. Let's get some reactions going up in here. Yes, we love it. We love it. We love it. I don't know if you had a chance to see, but down in the chat, you were already getting some love from Dr. Watson, who says these are great tips and that she can see someone, i.e. you, coming back to help train other students who are interested in doing this kind of work. So this is fantastic. So we now have time to ask some questions of Alexi, to also provide comments. So please, let's go ahead and take it away. So Hannah, by all means, please.
Great presentation, Lexi. I really enjoyed it. I got so many tips. I wrote down so many tips because being a president for diversity career educators, it's really hard to make a room very comfortable because I am the only African American in that organization. And to talk about racism and to talk about a lot of social justice topics that's very uncomfortable with other race as well. I love how you just gave tips on having to take control of the room, I gained so much tips on that, and I really do appreciate it.
I'm so glad. If you ever have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat, but I'm glad that you got some of the tips. But it's really helpful, especially when you have like a leadership role, like know like these things. Like I've had leadership roles in the past, but after doing all of this, I feel like I really gained more knowledge on like how I can be a better leader. And I've been there before. Sometimes it gets uncomfortable, like, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
This is great. And also in the chat as well, if you would like to see Alexi in action, the Town Hall archive link has been posted there. So please feel free to check it out. Okay. Shema, please go right ahead.
Yeah, great job on this. I think facilitation and just research on how to best facilitate these kind of conversations is really important, especially with organizations, schools, different groups, just trying to have more of these conversations about diversity, equity, inclusion, and race in general. It's very important to do your research beforehand because a lot of these conversations can be very fueled by like just your passion for the topic. It's very passionate topic, but just having these ground rules are really important. I think that this is some awesome research. So great job, Lexi.
Thank you.
Fabulous. All right. Any other comments, questions, thoughts? Dr.
I'll
Watson.
just offer that I love the idea of this being some kind of a training protocol for student leaders. It's not the way that we had framed it, but I love that you feel like you're growing as a student leader by participating in a project like this. And it feels to me like that training could work on that level and enable you all as student leaders to really bring these issues much more effectively to your campuses. So hadn't thought of that. Thank you, Shema. Thank you, Alexi. Appreciate that.
So many great things happening as a result of this panel. So, hats off to our participants thus far. This is wonderful. Alexi has put her email address in the chat, and actually all presenters, I would invite you at some point in time today, if you feel comfortable, to do that so that folks can connect with you to be able to continue the conversation. So by all means, please feel free to do that. So thank you again, Alexi. And now we are going to move on to Anissa's presentation. So Anissa is going to talk to us about her topic entitled, Where Do We Go From Here? The Healing of Black America. So Anissa, please take it away.
Yeah, so just a little background for everybody. I worked with Dr. Veronica Watson on the I Fear for My Life, They That Mourn project, where we were interviewing multiple subjects to see if they could collaborate with this book. And my research is basically what I got from there. So I'm going to go ahead, and I've got a little thing to share with you all. Let me know if you can see it. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So just to see where I'm coming from, I'm from a primarily white area. And this is how essentially I was taught the history of Black people in America. 400 years ago, we had American slavery. People were stripped of their liberties, beaten into submission, sold as property. And then, hundreds of years went by, about 250 years, right? And then we had the Jim Crow era, with the Reconstruction era, with segregation and segregation laws and the legalizing of segregation. And then we come to the 1954, after the Civil Rights Movement and new legislation passed, where we have this idea that we're equal now. The struggle has ended. And that necessarily wasn't the case. So I'm gonna stop sharing that and just talk to you guys here. I don't know. Okay, so in a modern era, equality does seem obtainable. And in a sense, we are more equal. The time gauge did show us that we were in the green section. However, amid a global pandemic, and as Dr. Shorter said earlier, the killings of Black people, and this global pandemic that unproportionately was killing Black Americans. We watched George Floyd lose his life with Derek Chauvin and his knee for 9 minutes. And then recently with Kim Porter, who was a 20-year veteran on the force, and she shot Dante Wright, mistaking her gun for a taser. And if we're to take anything away from that time gauge, it's that 2020 alone proved to the world that the injustice Black Americans have been battling is a result of racism that has been trickling down since the 1600s. Recently, I had the opportunity to interview Dr. Cheryl Grills, and most of you don't know who that is, so I'll tell you who she is. She's a clinical psychologist. She's the director of the Psychology Applied Research Center at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. And she's also the former president of the Association for Black Psychologists. In 2015, Dr. Grills had participated in a TED Talk, which she addressed this idea of a mental slavery. So Dr. Grills discussed the trauma and the stress that people of African descent specifically have been dealing with as a result of global multi-generational racism. As president of the Association of Black Psychologists, Dr. Grills worked with the Community Healing Network to co-design, collaborate on these emotional emancipation circles, or EE circles as she calls them. And they provided a space for Black people to understand and rewrite the narrative, and overcome this ingrained concept of Black inferiority, allowing Black people to heal and take the steps towards an equal and just world, starting with themselves. After talking to Dr. Grills, you couldn't help but reflect, and she's a very insightful woman. And despite sharing this common denominator with Black people, it's clear to see that my experience as a Black woman is different from everybody else's experience as a Black person or a Black woman or a Black man. So it's, you have to say that no two people are alike, and the ways in which we heal for ourselves will vary across the board. However, after having conducted all these interviews with the FDI, and interviewing people who varied in, gender and age, in their community engagement, in their religion, in their education, in their location, you had to conclude that there were at least two common and often intersecting ways in which the Black psyche heals, and these forms are healing through politics and activism. Now, the idea of healing through the use of politics is often practiced by those who already work within the government, primarily on the state and local levels. Of course, there's national engagement. For example, Senator Booker introducing, the Crown Act, which makes it illegal for people to discriminate against hair. But often it's on the state and local level. So as I conducted these interviews, the demographics that typically fit this category of people who were healing or helping facilitate healing through politics were religious leaders, mayors, or people on city council boards, or members of city councils. Of all the people I interviewed, the two that fit all three of those categories, they were mayors, they were in the religious community, and they were city council members, was Mayor Ella Jones of Ferguson, Missouri, and former Mayor Bishop Hearns of Lancaster, California. So Ella Jones, just to give you background about her, was never interested in politics. She actually only entered politics in the mid 2014 era, after her husband died. And she only spent a short time on, she actually joined the Democratic committee for her area in Missouri. But then, there's a big push. Everybody really enjoyed her. They really liked her. So they pushed her onto the city council, where she was elected the first Black female on the city council, and then again, the first Black female for mayor of Ferguson. So she was elected mayor in 2015, in April of 2015, and in August of 2014 was the killing of Michael Brown. Jones said that the death of Brown really woke her in a way that it moved her from complacency to action. And a quote that she said in our interview that I really enjoyed was, "We were so busy with our lives, we didn't understand that what the undeserved were going through." And there's also often that concept is that we're not really aware of what's going around with other people. So going back to that gauge, we think we've healed. We think that Black people are okay. We think we've gone past, all that trauma. So having once been a sundown town, Ferguson, a sundown town, if you don't know what that is a town that required Black people to be inside at a certain time or out of a certain location at a certain time. So having once been a sundown town, Ferguson is divided still racially and economically by this one avenue in the town. That division caused a lack of understanding and a sort of denial to the importance of Brown's death. And in not acknowledging the significance of a Black man or even a Black person being gunned down is a contributing factor to Black inferiority. And Mayor Jones had made a push for a more equal police department using her platform in politics. She pushed for this idea that, okay, we need more Black people. The town demographic was 70% Black, 20% white, and a majority of the police department was white. And we needed more female on that list as well, is what she did. And then she also went ahead and helped push for a consent decree that created new training guidelines for police, required police to have body cameras, and also basically rewrote the use of force policies within the department. So having listened to the demands of her people, Jones was able to use her platform as a political leader to help rewrite this narrative, to help people feel like they were given a chance or given an opportunity to dismantle this idea of Black is less, and ultimately creating a safer and equal environment that would allow people to prosper, to heal. Because you can't do those things if everything around you feels like it's, hammering away at you. And then to go into Bishop Hearn's, unlike, Ella Jones, who was also a pastor, Bishop Hearns used his religious background a lot, especially when it came to his politics. So he became a pastor in the 1960s, and he was a pastor of their local church in Lancaster until 2016. And in the interview with with Bishop Hearns, he said that to be a pastor, it is his job to understand the pain of people and to be able to facilitate that and help people the best he can. So he really transferred that skill as an empath when he was elected the first African American to Lancaster's City Council, and then when he served as mayor. So Bishop Hearns was a regular facilitator in raising awareness about the injustice. He often he ended up hosting an annual commencement in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King, but he also led marches in response to the death of young Black people, specifically Rodney King. He also hosted prominent Black figures, not even just prominent Black figures, prominent Black women like Vice President Kamala Harris and Representative Maxine Waters. So Hearns, like Jones, as a political figure, has afforded people an opportunity to be heard. And that's one way in which people, can take advantage of that. When you have somebody who's in that position that wants to listen to you, that is saying, okay, we'll create the policies and I'll hear you out and I'll lead you through these issues. And the other form of healing I observed is the healing through activism. And that can be broken down into two subcategories, community activism and organized activism, which sounds a little messy when I explain it further. But community activism is defined as a short-term effect, basically. It's the use of riots, protests, and the people who are doing it are primarily non-professionals. That isn't like non-professionals being like college-age students and younger. That isn't to say, obviously, older people and professionals aren't participating. It's just the major demographic. So the use of community activism sends a very loud message. We can go back to this summer with George Floyd. Everybody heard about that. Everybody knew it was going on constantly. So community activism, is a showcase of feelings of inequality and a call for attention to the disparities that African Americans, in this case, are, dealing with. It can be seen as more aggressive and very disorderly. And it's kind of a last minute, a last straw form of healing. If action isn't going to be taken when we ask for it, then we demand it. I'm gonna let this person. So on the other hand is organized activism. And this is classified as the long-term involvement. So people who are doing the organized activism are professionals usually. They typically, in my research, have a background in law enforcement, criminal justice, and sociology and psychology. And these organized activists primarily look for a long-lasting impact on their communities through organizations, whether they form them or they join them, or committees, again, whether they form them or join them. So I interviewed a lot of people, a lot. We talked to so many people. And a good chunk of them had a background in some sort of criminal justice. And what was really unique about these people is that when you have a background in criminal justice and you're primarily interviewing Black people, you're going to have this really interesting middle ground, because there is that separation between Black people, whether you're a Black cop or not, and a Black person. We've seen that divide. We know that divide. We've lived that divide. And so they are in a really unique spot, especially when they're working constantly with police and other members of law enforcement to dismantle this idea of, not even an idea, like the actual disparities African Americans face when it comes to law enforcement. So the person who I talked to who just balanced it all so perfectly was Dr. Chanel Jones. So Dr. Jones, a little background about her. She got her bachelor's of arts in psychology, went on and got her master's in human services, and now has her PhD in the administration of justice. She works everywhere. She does everything. She works at Franklin University in Ohio. She's the assistant dean of community engagement. She oversees multiple safety programs. She's also the national, yes, I think Dr. Watson linked it there. She's also the national director of research for TAPS Academy. She was appointed by the mayor of Columbus to serve as a community safety appointed by the mayor of Columbus to serve on the Community Safety Advisory Committee. And she's also an ambassador for the Change Starts here, and she founded her own organization, Come Together Ohio. So all of these organizations that she does, most of them anyway, focus in some way or another on Black empowerment and balancing police community engagement. And while she's doing that, she's looking on how can we move forward that's going to have a long lasting effect and not cause chaos like with the community activism would. So with TAPS, for example, which is the Teen and Police Service Center, essentially at-risk teens are put in an environment where they can interact with police where they are in control. They have the power to control the narrative, tell police how I feel, why you make me scared, why you did this, I saw you handcuff my mom, all these things. And they can explain those things and those feelings and those emotions to the cops one-on-one. And this, TAPS is designed to close the gap between police and youth, especially youth. If you start young, you can carry that on. So police are listening and children are afforded that opportunity to share their thoughts, share their feelings, experiences. And then with Change Starts Here, Dr. Jones, this is her second to last, this is an organization she joined anyway. Basically, it's seeking to educate law enforcement on how to better interact with people of color in communities. So where TAPS is focused on at-risk youth, closing that gap with law enforcement for the long-term effects, Change Starts Here is looking on teaching cops how to interact with kids instead of, I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. So teaching cops how to better interact with people, but also promoting, a relationship instead of butting heads. There's always going to be this, well, he stole my money and then, she wrecked my car, stuff. There's always going to be two sides to every story. It's providing cops an opportunity to be like, okay, how can I better put myself in this situation? The sad part is that we have to train the cops, right? So once again, Dr. Jones with, Change Starts Here and TAPS, she's establishing these long-lasting relationships where people who are not seen or often are viewed as inferior Black people have an opportunity to build those relationships and say, hey, you're screwing up here. Hey, you're being racist. This isn't a racist institution. You need to not be involved in it. Be a cop all you want. You need to listen to me if you're going to do it. If you're going to work on protecting our community, you need to listen on how to better do it for us. So yeah, so at the end of the day, we see that chart again, the green, and I guess you could say we're kind of there, but at the same time, I wouldn't put us in green. I'd keep us in yellow. You got to keep us in yellow. We're still fighting the long fight, and we've got to work on fixing ourselves the best way we can, whether that be through protests, whether that be through these committees and organizations, whether that be through joining politics or going through your town hall. We need to focus on healing ourselves and focus on healing our communities and educating people and sharing this information so we can move forward, move into green. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Anissa. Let's give Anissa a round of applause. Yay! We got the reactions going. You know that we love a good reaction. So yes, let's have them going. All right. So we do have lots of time for some commentary, some questions, some comments. So Hannah, please start us off.
Great presentation. I loved it. You mentioned that you had a lot of interviews with various people, individuals. So my question is, out of your interviews, out of all your interviews, I know there's a lot, but can you say one in particular person you connected with and why?
Yeah, so actually, Dr. Grills is who I connected with the most. I actually, once I got off the phone with her, I called my boyfriend right away and I was like, you have to listen to this. You have to listen to this. And I sent him the link to the TED Talk. I was like, this woman's amazing. It really resonated with me with this idea that the trauma that we're feeling now and that, you know, the experiences we're having now, that's long term, but that's all mental too. I mean, it does have a really long mental effect. And it really, that's why, you know, that's what inspired my presentation today was Dr. Grills.
Can you post and there's probably a lot, but can you post the TED Talk link?
Yeah, absolutely, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We can
Dr.
take care of
Watson.
that for you, Anissa.
Thank you.
Go ahead and do that for us, please. Dr. Grills, TED Talk.
Other questions, comments, Alexi?
I was wondering how your research process and everything was. Like, was it how exactly did you go about, like, you know, getting all of this information and like meeting with all of these people? I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, so these people were actually assigned to us for the I Fear for My Life, They That Mourn project. And we established questions as a group and collaborated and did prelim research on what best questions to ask them. But as far as went for my research, luckily we recorded everything. Really thankful for that. I went back and I listened to a lot of recordings, but also we took notes during these recordings. So I was able to go back and do that. But my process was a lot of reading and a lot of listening, which I think is the best way to learn.
Thank you. Shema, please.
I think the designation between community and political activism or just work towards kind of just advancing like different issues that Black people face is really interesting, because I think there was a lot of discussion this past summer of like performative activism or just like lots of like different groups that did have genuine interest in advancing Black issues, but we're just there for the protest. We're just there for the very public work, when there is a lot of background work within organizations and systems that can take years and years, and that takes like a lot of it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of mental effort. It takes a lot of convincing of leadership and things in order to make this change. So I think that designation is really interesting, and I'd like to see a lot more research on just that political and more long-term activism and like what goes into it, best practice, things like that. So really great presentation.
Thank you. And of course, you know, all these intersect. I mean, you can't have your community without your politics, and you can't have your rights without your politics. You can't have your police engagement without your politics and your community. So it does all intersect, but the long term, it would be nice because it seems like we're stuck in the short term. It really does. So getting over that hurdle, look forward to it one day.
Fantastic. Any more comments or thoughts? Anissa, I'm also going to ask you if you wouldn't mind just to put your contact information in the chat so that folks can connect. Looks like Dr. Grills' TED Talk has been placed in there as well.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. I'm about to graduate, everyone, so I've put my professional email in there. Thank you. I put my email in there for you to reach out. It's not a school email, but yeah.
Well, that is wonderful. Fantastic. Ned, please.
I think that it's great that we can come together in this virtual space to have these conversations. These dialogues are difficult, but yet we have a community here within this virtual room, and it's just awesome. So it's just a little comment. Great job, everyone.
And that's a perfect way to tie it all together. I don't know about you all, but my life has been so enriched by spending this a little bit over an hour with all of you. And again, so many solutions that you all provided to really take us into the next chapter of society, where we're able to have conversations with those in law enforcement about ways that we can change policies and in ways that we can do more and do better to be able to protect the lives of ourselves, right? You know, for many of us who are part of this panel. So thank you so much for everything. And so I have two favors to ask of everyone as we prepare to leave this space together. The first is, if you are here and you are looking for an attendance voucher, if you would just feast your eyes upon the chat now, here is the link to the attendance voucher, and you can share that with whoever you would like to. Next, I would like to invite everybody to give us your thoughts, your feedback to everything that you have learned thus far within our presentation today. So we have an evaluation that we would like to ask for you to do. So this is the link to the evaluation. The links are coming back to back, so it can be a little bit hard sometimes to kind of see which one is what, but the office.com form is the evaluation. So if you would not mind sharing some of your feedback with us, we would greatly appreciate it. Again, let us just take one more moment to thank all of our presenters. Thank you so much, presenters. We are so proud of you, the best and the brightest from our system. So thank you. And please make sure that you stay tuned to our wonderful schedule of events. We have a presentation, our next presentation coming up in just a few hours from now. So we look forward to seeing you all soon. Have a great rest of your day, and see you around the conference.
Real quick, presenters, please also participate in the evaluation. There is a section that's specifically there for you. So please do that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.